And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we're talking about if the Chicago Bulls missed on an opportunity to trade for Cam Whitmore. Next, we're going to be talking about the most recent rumors around Nikola Vucevic and him being listed as a buyout candidate. We're going to be doing a little bit of a buy or sell on that. And so before we go ahead and we jump into all of that, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider families. We talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead, let's jump into it. And let's start with the latest here around Cam Whitmore. And so if you've not got a chance to see this, this is something that officially got done here today as the Houston Rockets are trading Cam Whitmore to the Washington Wizards for 2 second-round pick. Sources tell ESPN the deal gives Whitmore a tremendous opportunity for an increased role as he turns 21 on Tuesday and returns to the DMV area. This was Shams via ESPN here. And so if you want to read about this a little bit more into details, you can go over here to Bleacher Nation. This is Elias Schuster who wrote about it, and he brings up some great points about this trade. And so, definitely go and check that out. And so jumping back over to, just the topic here, did the Bulls miss a major opportunity to get Cam Whitmore? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. I think that when you look at the details of the deal and what it took to get Cam Whitmore and just a couple second round picks, I absolutely think that this is something that the Chicago Bulls missed on. And this is the third time we've talked about Cam Whitmore, because remember, the first time the rumor was that the Houston Rockets would be open to trading him, didn't necessarily have a link to the Chicago Bulls. Then the last time that we talked about Cam Whitmore, it was on the Hoops Hype article that we talked about, where it said that the Chicago Bulls had interest in him before they went and they got Isaac Okoro. And then now we're seeing that a trade has been done where you see that Cam Whitmore is headed to the Washington Wizards. And so, the first thing I think is just with the opportunity with the picks and the fact that the Wizards were able to get him. Next, I think that the Bulls missed on this opportunity because when you look at Cam Whitmore and the contract he's still under his rookie contract. And so it's very cost effective at this point, or it would have been cost effective for the Chicago Bulls or really any team at this point. And plus, on top of that, Cam Whitmore just turning 21. And so he's younger than Isaac Okoro. And so not to take anything away from Isaac Okoro, who I think is going to be terrific for the Chicago Bulls on the defensive end. Let me be clear about that. I'm excited to see what he does there. Offensively, I think that is where it's going to be a bit of a challenge for Isaac Okoro. I do think that there is a possibility where he can definitely figure it out with the Chicago Bulls, especially given the opportunity. But when you're talking about how the Bulls are trying to build with younger players that have shown some upside, then I think that Cam Whitmore would be the player that I would have taken a look at, especially if you're looking to take a bit of a home run here. And I think that, look, because of the youth that you would get with him, the contract situation, and the fact that he's shown that he can be a good scorer in this league, and even in limited time, like Cam Whitmore has shown that he can be impactful there, because 9.4 points, he had 12.3 points that he averaged the year before. And I mean, I know it's not numbers that, you would write home about with the rebounds and the assists, at just 3 rebounds and an assist a game. But still, this was limited playing time for him. He shot 44% from the field, down just a percentage from his first year. And he shot 35.5% from downtown. And so that definitely is something that translates to the way that the Chicago Bulls play. 75% from the free throw line. I think that that's something that he could get better at. The question for him was going to be defense, 0.3 with the blocks, 0.6 with the steals. But again, at 16.2 minutes a game, like, I definitely am taking a chance on that with the second round picks. And what's wild about this, and also too, again, if you go over to Bleacher Nation, you can read about the details of this, but also too, if you just want to see how this trade breaks down with the names and everything else, you can go over to Hoops Rumor, and this is actually what you're going to see there. And so you can see it for yourself that the Chicago Bulls second round picks were actually included in the deal to get this thing done. And so, that just brings me to really the next point here when you're talking about just draft capital, right? And you're talking about, just what it takes, for the Bulls to just turn this thing around here, just taking that down quickly for you guys to see this, but just what it's going to take for the Chicago Bulls to turn things around. And I think arguably, man, when you look at this shows you why draft capital is important to a franchise. I think that, draft capital is certainly impactful to your team because number one, if you're drafting players in the draft, right, and you have multiple draft picks, that is a way in which you can take multiple swings on your roster and you can get some things to work out and really change the course of your franchise. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just first round talent, because when you look at what the Thunder did with 3 undrafted players and 5 second round picks that were all in their rotation as they just won they just won the championship. This lets you know just how important draft capital can be from just going out and drafting players if you're taking that serious. And then next, I think that when you look at this Cam Whitmore deal, it was a 3-team deal. And I think that 3-team deals are something that you're probably going to see some more of, especially with the way that the CBA is set up and these tax aprons and stuff like that. So if you have draft capital, as far as, that you can go ahead and allocate, whether it's first round or second round, you're probably going to be the team that I think teams would call and say, hey, look, we're working out a deal. And, we know that you're looking for a younger player. Would you be interested? You have this draft capital. Would you be willing to move off of that? And so I just think from a negotiation standpoint, you open yourself up more when you have the draft capital. And so this is why it is important for the Bulls to now start to stack up draft capital and take it seriously. And, one of the things that was brought up too in this Bleacher Nation article was just how the Lakers were able to go ahead and use cash considerations to move up in the second round to get a player that is certainly going to be probably impactful to their roster, maybe for the long term here. And so that just lets you know how important draft capital is. And so, just going back to it, I definitely think that the Chicago Bulls missed on an opportunity with Cam Whitmore, especially if you're talking about just really swinging, for the fences here. I think that Cam Whitmore is a player that I would bet on. And I think that it's great to see that Cam Whitmore is headed back to the Washington Wizards. As mentioned in that tweet, he is from the DMV. And so to go back home and be able to play in front of the home crowd, that's got to be an incredible feeling. And I do expect for Cam Whitmore to have a breakout season. I absolutely love his game, love seeing it in the summer league, love seeing it in the time that I got a chance to see him play, just televised and stuff like that. And so again, I think that this was definitely a missed opportunity for the Chicago Bulls. And so next, I wanted to go ahead and jump into the next topic here as we're talking about Nikola Vucevic and the most recent rumor around him and possibly being bought out. And so if you want to read about this, you can go over to this article title. I believe this is on msn.com if you want to read that. And within this article, it's going to take you to a tweet here from Evan Sidery. And so Evan Sidery, he writes for the Forbes here. And so this is what he had to say there. It says that the Bulls have had little luck generating a trade market for Nikola Vucevic after demanding a first-round pick at the deadline. Chicago's market for the soon-to-be 35-year-old has dried up. Vucevic wants to finish his career on a contending team, so a buyout could be an option. All right. And so with that being said, look, man, you got to take all these rumors with a grain of salt, but I figured let's go into a little bit of a buy or sell on this one. And I am selling. I do not think that the Chicago Bulls would buy out Nikola Vucevic. And the first reason why I am selling on this is because the Chicago Bulls as a franchise really doesn't operate like that. I've never seen anything where the Chicago Bulls have gone off and just paid a player to go home. I don't think that that would change for Nikola Vucevic, especially a player that I think that AK, the front office, the coaching staff, they really appreciate Vooch. They really like him being there. They appreciate what he brings to the team and everything else. And so I could not see a situation where that happens. Now, not saying that it could not happen, because anything can happen, but I just don't see that that's happening. And that's why I give this a sell. And so next up, I think the next thing to think about with this is that if the Bulls were thinking about buying out Vooch, then why wouldn't they buy out a guy like Javon Carter? Because Javon Carter, he's only making $6 million for the year. Why wouldn't you just go ahead and buy him out? That's far less, right, on a contract, and you would open up a roster spot. And this is a player that, look, when he's got a chance to play, I think he's come in and he's done what he can do. He's had some productive moments. He's had some unproductive moments. Unfortunately, with the Chicago Bulls, they have a ton of guards, and it just hasn't worked out. But I would think that if they were in the market to buy out Vooch, then they certainly would have to be in the market to buy out a guy like Javon Carter. So I would not see something like that happening because of that. And then next, look, when you look at Vooch and you look at the productivity from Vooch, he is still a guy that goes out and gets you 18 and 11. Like, I mean, the bottom line here is that Vooch is still a highly productive player. And not only is Vooch a highly productive player, he's coming off a year in which he shot 40.2% from three. Now, am I saying that he's going to finish his career like that? No, but he's showing you that he can still shoot the basketball at a high clip. He shot 53% from the field. Look, he played in 73 games he started in, and then also 2.7 with the blocks, 10.1 to be exact with the rebounds at 18.5 points per game. That's terrific numbers. And I think that, look, if you were to buy Vooch out, I guarantee you, look, he is not going to stay on the buyout market very long. I think that the teams that have been rumored around Vooch would certainly be interested. And I guarantee you teams that were not reportedly, interested in Vooch would suddenly come around as well. And so I think that Vooch is still a player that teams would definitely want, especially when you're talking about a winning situation here. And so that brings me to the next point with Vooch. He's still productive. And I think that you could at the very least, get a second round pick. I think you can. And I'm not in the camp of saying that he's just going to get you a first round pick. I think that really that ship may have sailed, because when you look at just what the Chicago Bulls have done from a negotiation standpoint, they haven't gotten picks for their players. And honestly, I'm not in the front office. I don't even know if that's really what they want to do. I think that maybe they might be in a situation where they're just waiting for a one-to-one swap, which is going to lead me to my next point. But point being this, I think that he could still go out and net you at least a second round pick. So I definitely wouldn't buy him out. And it's not like we're talking about a Bradley Beal type of situation here. Vooch doesn't have a no trade clause. Vooch doesn't have multiple years. Vooch has 1 year, one at $21.5 million. And he's still productive. The players behind him in Zach Collins, and then also in Jalen Smith, neither of those players have really shown that they could necessarily be the starting center for the Chicago Bulls, in my opinion, because if you look at it, you still see situations where there is did not plays for those guys. And even when Vooch and all these guys were all healthy, there were times where Billy Donovan was really hesitant to throw him out there with Vooch, and he was kind of hesitant to play some of these guys. And so I could see if the Bulls had, a guy like, I'm just throwing an example out there, like a Thomas Sorber, and then he went out in the summer league, he played well, he's looking great in the camp and everything else, and the Bulls go, okay, look, we can go ahead, we can buy him out and move on. We can go ahead and make just a roster position here for Thomas Sorber or whoever else that we had drafted to get some stability here, and he can start to play, and then we can move on from that. And then we can just continue to just go with our youth movement that way. But it's not like you have a center that is waiting, in the wings to take over for Vooch. And so I think that just by waiting a year or waiting to the trade deadline, I don't think that that's anything that sets the Bulls back from a time standpoint. I think that when you look at Noah Singay and Modest Buzelis and these guys like that, I just don't think that Vooch necessarily gets in your way. And he really helps you for the bottom line, which is trying to win some games here. And so, with that being said, man, I just think that, this is definitely a sell for me. I'm not in the camp of going ahead and buying out Vooch. But you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking as far as Nikola Vucevic. Do you feel like that, yes, the Chicago Bulls should be considering going ahead and just looking to buy out Vooch? Because another thing that I would like to throw out there with the Vooch situation is this. I think that there is a possibility, like I just think a real possibility that Vooch may even re-sign with the Bulls, much like Lonzo Ball did, where it's a team-friendly type of deal with a team option. It's far less, and it's something that is definitely tradable. And it would put the Bulls in a situation where they could do a one-for-one swap. And I say that because they look to be making moves that are for player. And so how could you make that possibly happen? You get Vooch into a contract extension that it makes sense for a team to take him on a one-for-one type of situation. And so I could see something like that. That's just me throwing out a possible resolution here if the Chicago Bulls don't trade him. And so you guys let me know how you feel about that. How do you feel about him being bought out there again? Once again, this was Evan Sidery who brought this up. You can go over to this article, take a look and read about it a little bit more. Takes you to that tweet. And then lastly here, talking about Cam Whitmore. Did the Chicago Bulls miss on a golden opportunity to get some young talent here in Cam Whitmore? Let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.